welcome, Elk Junkies. This is Lance Garner. We're excited to have you with us today. We are going to be talking with Nate Richards from NR Peaks. We thought it'd be a lot of fun to talk to a guide, and just last year, Nate guided Dave's son Jared's hunt. He was on a limited entry elk hunt, and they had a fantastic time. They were successful. Jared got a nice 6x6 bull, and so we thought it'd be a lot of fun to have Nate on the program, and so that's who we're going to be talking with today. So
yeah, we figured we needed to have somebody that was more of an expert than us, and Nate is definitely fits that mold. I mean, he's an awesome guy. He's a great individual. I would definitely recommend his guiding service, and he's teaches us a lot of stuff today as well.
Yeah, so. Cool guy. You know, we had him on the phone. We couldn't meet with him since he's way down, kind of like mid southern Utah, wherever he's at, and
just
so,
south of Price.
Yeah, so we just had him on the phone. Really cool guy, fun guy. Really enjoyed talking with him. So what's new in your life?
I ruptured a disc in my back. How's that?
That's fun. That makes prepping for elk season a little easier.
Yeah, no, it's just something that I deal with. I've got a bad back over the years, but I'm plugging through it, and I'm hoping for the best.
Well, let me tell you what I'm dealing with. A sore crotch.
Oh!
So I went.
Oh, from your mountain bike experience.
I went mountain biking yesterday, and it's the first time I've mountain biked this year. And I'll tell you what, with 30 pounds, I don't know what it was I had on my back, at least 30 pounds. And then you sit on that thin, stupid seat that they put on the mountain bikes.
Oh, it tears you up.
Oh my goodness, the weight was just unreal. And that was just a start.
Yeah.
And then you bike, I don't know what it was, 11 miles. 6 miles uphill and whatever, man. But I'm feeling all right. I thought
there's nothing worse than the first bike ride of the season. I will admit, it's just horrible.
I didn't want to wear. I've got the biking shorts with the pad, right? But I was like, oh, that's going to be a pain because what my plan was, I was going to bike in the 6 miles and then I was going to go hike and do some scouting around. And I thought, well, I don't want to wear shorts up and have to change and all this and that. So I actually went and bought like a cover that goes over the seat that had a pretty good cushion on it. Yeah. It didn't matter.
No.
I mean,
those things most of the time they just move to one side and it just pinches you.
So I thought I'd be walking funny or sitting funny today, but I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm all right.
I'm glad. I appreciate it.
But I'll tell you what, an e-bike is the way to go. If you can afford it.
Oh.
And when I biked that far, I mean, I probably got a mile and a half up the hill there and thought, I need an e-bike. This would be so awesome to have an e-bike and just be cruising up this thing. I get it with, I'm trying to get in shape. But you could do that with the e-bike too. You just take the power off, right? Yeah. And you could just work your legs. But that's what I was trying to do, is to get my legs in shape. But I thought, man, if you're just trying to get to your destination, an e-bike would just be incredible.
It would be a game changer. It'd be huge.
So,
and I know that our local archery range that we like to shoot at is sponsored by Baku bikes.
Yeah, there's a few brands out there, Rambo and Quiet Cap, but I know that Baku's close to us, so I might have to go test it out and see. But man, they're just. Yeah. But maybe I could sell mine. That's something I thought about. I thought there's a demand, especially with COVID, for bikes out there. Yeah. Maybe I could sell the one I got and take that money and put it towards the e-bike.
Yeah, you'll have to talk to Mr. Goff in our neighborhood. He sells mountain bikes out of his garage like nobody's business. Yeah. He fixes them up, buys them from people, fixes them up, sells them to somebody else for a profit.
Nice. Well, who knows? We'll see.
Yep.
It'd be nice to have, especially a lot of the places that I hunt, just a bike would come in real handy.
Well, and just the ease of access. I think, it's quiet. You're not having an ATV or a motorcycle that you're cruising down a trail. If you have an e-bike that you want to get back in somewhere, and a trailer to haul something out would be awesome.
And I think they got bigger padded seats.
Yes. They're a saddle.
My saddle would appreciate that. All right. Well, should we jump into the podcast with Nate?
I think we will jump into the podcast.
All right, cool. All right, we'll see you, everyone. See you on the other side. Welcome, everyone. This is Lance Garner. On today's podcast, we're going to be talking to a guide. We're going to be talking to Nate Richards. how this kind of all came about, pulling Nate into this podcast. One thing is I've never had a guide before, so I thought it'd be really cool to talk to a guide. Thought it'd be real interesting for all of us. But really, what happened is how we got connected with Nate was last year. Dave's son Jared, he drew out for a limited entry bull elk tag on the Manti Central unit, and Dave and Jared, they planned on hunting that themselves, learning the area, etc. But his son Jared's a really busy guy. He's got a full-time job, going to school full-time, chasing the girls. So it was kind of hard for him to be able to get out and do the scouting and what was necessary to kind of learn the area. So Dave had a friend that knew a guide, happened to be Nate, and they got connected. And so last year, Jared and Dave and Nate went out on this hunt, and Nate guided the hunt, and they were successful. So without further ado, Nate, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
We're excited to have you.
Yeah, we think this is going to be a lot of fun. I've got a ton of questions. Like I said, I've never had a guide before, and so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to chat with you. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. You just throw the questions out there. I'll answer whatever I can.
Well, the first question I've got for you, what got you into guiding, and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I've always been into hunting, and the guiding aspect of it never really come into play till, I don't know. I guess when I thought, well, how can I do this and not spend so much money,
Yeah.
So that's when I started looking at, well, maybe I'll do a little guiding work here and there. And that's where it started. As far as my own thing, it's been 4 or 5 years now. I've done a little guide work here and there, other outfitters, but as far as doing my own thing, it's been since 2017. So
your own thing. So what the name of the company's what? NR Peaks?
NR Peaks, yeah.
Stands for Nate Richards.
Well, yeah, it stands for Nate Richards. I when they ask me, I would tell them non-resident peaks.
There you go.
That
works too. Well, that's cool. And you got a full-time gig too, or a full-time job. So
yeah,
you're a busy guy.
I do construction when I'm not doing guide work. So no, guiding's not my full-time job. It's as much as I would like it to be, that's not the case.
But it's pretty much, you're always constantly looking for animals and patterns and such whenever you're in your off time as well, though.
Yeah, right. It's almost as if I have 2 full-time jobs.
Right.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time.
So do you guide a particular area? Do you stick to just kind of one general area that you guide? Is it the Central Manti unit?
Yeah, that's where I specialize in. That's the area in where I grew up. That's the area I live. So,
that makes sense.
The area I know.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Right. So, I mean, it's easy for me to get out and scout when I'm only 30 minutes away, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going to specialize in. I know other units, but I don't spend as much time there, right? So for me to be the kind of guide that somebody's looking for, I need to focus on one.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
You guided Jared's hunt last year, and that was for elk. Do you typically guide just elk? Do you guide other animals as well?
Well, I get more elk, but I'll do antelope, deer, elk. I mean, if I have calls for bear, lion, whatever, we'll get them hooked up with that as well. But it seems like that's all I do is elk. I don't think a lot of people know I do other stuff, mainly because most of my work comes from referrals, YouTube. I have a lot of videos on YouTube that people will always call in on. So they see that, and that's what they want to do,
Right. But your passion, I know when we were talking, is more mule deer hunting. That's what you love to do.
Yeah, I'm a mule deer guy for sure. I would much rather be out chasing mule deer. But the other thing you understand is, my permits are for certain areas as well.
Okay.
So, some of your premium units for deer, like Montsegat, Henry's, I'm still, I guess you could say, small potatoes compared to some of these other outfits. I don't have permits all over the place that I can rely on to go hunt.
Okay. So you have to have a permit in order to guide somebody. Is that what I'm getting?
Oh yeah. So for me, I've got to have a permit for every piece of ground that I'm going to be hunting on, whether that's state ground, BLM ground, or Forest Service ground. A lot of people don't realize that, but I mean, you could have one unit you're hunting, but you're needing 3 different permits to be able to hunt on it because you're going to be crossing all those areas.
That makes sense. That's interesting. I didn't realize that, like you said.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot easier for me to just focus on one unit because I'm, I guess, owner operator. Right. Like I have some guys that help me out, but when it's just me, it's a lot easier to focus on one unit. I can easily guide some other units, but I'm biting off more than I can chew.
Sure.
With you having a full-time job, I mean, obviously guiding takes a lot of time. But how many, I guess, people are we talking a year do you guide in a typical year? How many hunts?
Let's see. What did we do last year? 4. I think we took 4 bulls last year.
Yeah.
So 4 hunts and 4 bulls. Nice.
Yeah.
And then how much time are you spending in the off season? Are you running cameras? A lot of camera. What do you do? I mean, what's kind of your prep? Kind of learning the area, or you just know it really well? What goes on there?
Any chance I get, I go to the mountain. So pretty much every weekend, I'm out doing something. Whether this is checking cameras, setting cameras, looking for bulls, sometimes hitting up new areas.
How many cameras are we talking?
I probably have close to 70 cameers out.
Wow. So there's a full-time job right there. Just checking cameras, yeah. Man. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of cameras. That's the thing is, you get to a point where you can't get to them all, and so I have probably, I don't know, 30, 40 cameras I run for elk, and then 20, 30 I'd say I run for deer.
Wow.
And some of those you were saying that you leave out there for like a year minimum before you go check it, right?
Right. Yeah. So sometimes I do, especially if I go into a new area, I'll actually set a camera, and I won't check it until those batteries are dead. Year and a half or something, depending on how many pictures that it's taking. But because I want to know, when are these animals moving in? When are they moving out? And then obviously the quality and that too.
Yeah.
In some of these areas, you need to leave them out that long to get the information. And some of these areas can be so remote that I just don't have the time to get back in there to check them. And so it's usually like a year later that I come up with a game plan for that area.
Wow. Yeah,
information I have.
It's just hard for me to imagine. Just last year, I set up a camera, I let the thing run for maybe a month, right? And then I go up, I get my card, and I go through all those photos. Just the amount of time it takes to just go through a month worth of photos for one camera. I can only imagine what it's like to go through 70 cameras and all those photographs. That's got to be pretty time consuming.
Oh yeah, it's my wife gets tired of me looking at the computer. I'll tell you that much. I just, I've got it down now to where I try to make it quicker and quicker. Sometimes it's difficult when you're setting up cameras. You end up with that twig that gives you a few extra 1,000 pictures you wanted.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It becomes kind of an art when you're running cameras. There's a lot of things to look out for after a while.
What cameras do you like to run?
I run a variety of them. Some of my favorite cameras, though, are actually like the older Bushnell cameras. They're kind of like the Tascos they used to have, where they only ran 4 batteries. Now, the reason I like these cameras, because I tell people this and they're like, well, you run so many cameras, they're all junk. But you got to understand, when I'm running a lot of cameras like that, I don't care so much about the picture quality as much as the information I get out of it.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So if I have a low megapixel camera that isn't going to be taking as much power to run, that's great for me, because when you take, for example, 50 cameras, and instead of having 4 batteries, now you've got 8 batteries. Add those up every year. It becomes twice the investment it was before.
Yeah.
So,
are you doing video or just photographs typically, just to save on?
I do video on some. I do have some nice cameras, but when it comes to my favorite, those were my favorite. The ones they don't make anymore.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that tends to be the way it goes, right?
Yeah. Well, and Nate has his own system too that he has, with your cables and all the locks the same and everything. I mean, I was impressed when we went and checked your cameras at one time when we were hiking before the hunt, just how efficient you were once we got to the spot. I mean, to me, it was like, okay, we got there. Most of the time when I check my cameras, I'm taking off my pack, I'm doing whatever I want, checking the pictures, and Nate's like, okay, we're going to check these cameras, and all of a sudden we were like, okay, we're going to the next one. I'm like, what? You already checked them? Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah, you get your own system going after a while.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you learn from those cameras? I mean, are you seeing patterns, certain specific elk that just have a pattern, they come to the same camera over and over? I mean, what kind of things are you learning from those, running that many cameras?
Well, a lot of stuff. Okay. We'll go with elk for an example. So with a lot of the elk that I get on camera on the mountain, they will be in a certain area at a certain time, and then they move to another location. And I could think of probably 4 or 5 bulls off the top of my head that they will be in the same summer range every year, right? At the same time. But then as soon as the rutting season starts, they show up on another camera on a different mountain, like clockwork. So, but then you have some that are just so sporadic. I'll have them on one camera on one mountain, and then I'll have them on a completely different one on another, So I guess they all have their habits, but you get to learn that particular bull, right?
Yeah.
So, and from that you can learn where the escape routes are and everything else. So,
you name them? Do you name the bulls you like?
I used to name them all the time, but anymore I just find the most common thing about them, like the bull with the extra third, or
yeah,
things like that. You start running out of names.
I bet.
So is theft a problem too? You ran into problems with people trying to steal cameras?
Yeah, I've had about everything you can think of, from people smashing cameras to cutting the cable, taking the chip,
Smearing
whatever.
mud on it.
Sure. Yeah, if it's not the bull, then it's a person. Yeah, fingerprints are usually a dead giveaway.
When you say if it's not the bull, so you've had the elk mess with your camera?
Constantly. Yeah, you place cameras on water holes, and you're bound to get some muddy cameras.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I took some of the video I had last year. This calf came over, and he was just licking the lock and banging it and banging it and banging it, and then the cow behind him was just staring at this calf like, "What are you doing?" But that calf wanted to play with the lock. I guess thought it was a bell or something.
Yeah, it's fun to see when they get up there and they start licking the lens and all that. It's pretty fun, and I get a lot of bear that do that as well. That you always have that little bit of scent on there. So And so if you want a tip, if you do happen to have problem with bear getting on your camera, take a little bit of cayenne pepper with you. Get that on your camera.
They don't
works,
like that,
huh?
Yeah, it works great.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, I've had times where some units I'll have cameras on, right? I'll go run some cameras on a particular unit for a couple of years and whatever. You know, Manti's not too bad for bear, but some of these other units have a lot of bear, and I have a lot of cameras deployed with them. One year I had it was like 5 in a row, and I don't know if it was because I'd had pizza, the day I went and fed them or what. But man, they got them all. And so, but that's the thing. You start using some of that cayenne pepper, it helps a lot.
That's a good idea.
I've always found that interesting, with animals, they hate the human scent. It scares them off, but then they seem to at times like it. You know what I mean? They get curious and
Yeah,
want to know what that is.
right. Yeah, and I used to use different attractants as well. I know now there's the bait issue in
Right.
Utah, but before I would always have some salt that I would put with, like some molasses, black magic, and things. But certain things I done away with, like the black magic that had the molasses, that always bring in too many bears for me. So I just stick with the salt or whatever. But
what are your
now I think it's just all water holes.
What are your thoughts on that law? I mean, I know, so they did pass the law, that regulation that you no longer can bait, but they kind of set aside the camera change. They talked about regulating the cameras and only being able to put them up a certain time of year. And now it looked like that law, I think they just basically kicked it back to the DWR or the RAC to basically regulate that and come up with some rules. But for me, I really don't run cameras, and so it didn't bother me, but I wanted to look at it not for me personally, because that's kind of selfish. I thought, well, what about the guys that run cameras? What about the guides that run lots of cameras? I mean, that's a huge impact, I would think, to their livelihood and to the way they hunt. So in that respect, that's why I was against it, because I was thinking, well, I shouldn't just look at it selfishly. I got to look at it from other people's perspective.
Totally
but
agree.
What are your thoughts? I mean, what kind of, I imagine that's pretty devastating to a guide if they couldn't run cameras.
Right. I mean, and that, sportsmen, so we really ought to have a say in it. Right. That's the only thing that troubles me, is when they don't have a voice there. But, I look at it like, well, it's kind of like long range shooting, right? So they allow me to shoot out there 800 yards. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take full advantage of that, because I know how much advantage it is to be able to shoot long range, right? To take a trophy. So I do that. It's the same thing with cameras. I know what kind of advantage that is. I'm going to use that to my advantage if I'm able to. If someday they say, hey, we're going to regulate your camera use or whatever, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I can, even if we couldn't run cameras, there's still ways to hunt these animals, and that's okay with me, because that's hunting, man. You do what it takes to be successful, and if I can use cameras, I'm going to do it. And that's kind of my stance on it. I don't care either way. If they want to regulate it, it's fine. But if they don't, I'll continue to use them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll be successful either way, especially where like particularly your area.
Right.
You have the advantages of the camera, but there's other ways still to be successful. So that's good.
Right. Yeah. Cameras can be really useful sometimes. But then there's sometimes, it's not real necessary. There's some areas I don't run cameras because they're not going to do you any favors. It's just going to waste your time. Where you get into some areas where it's big glassing country, right? So you get into areas where you're more successful at glassing up animals than you are running the cameras. So there's no point in running the cameras. Unless you have cell service or something and you're running some cell cameras. But really, you only use them if there's an advantage to it. So like I do a lot of desert hunting. That's a pretty big advantage. When it comes to mule deer, not elk, you can find animals that you just never knew was there because they cover such a big area. They move so much. You might only get 1 or 2 pictures of that buck, but then it exists, and it's worth spending more time there and looking into other areas nearby. But yeah, I don't care either way. I have a lot of people ask me that. It's like, oh, you must really be upset that the cameras, they're under.
You must be going to the Capitol every day.
They expect that from me, but it's not really the case. It's still hunting. There was a time when there wasn't cameras, and you had to come up with other ways of finding out when the animal's there, whether tying string to your stopwatch or whatever it was. But now we have cameras, and it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
The game's played a little bit different now.
Well, and I think, like you said too at the start, you kind of know generally where these elk are going to be because you have such a intimate relationship with the mountain, and you have an idea of when these elk are going to be in there because you have been around them so long that you're like, yeah, we need to go here. Because I after those first couple of days of the archery season, when we were like, well, we've been here too long, you're all, let's go try this area. We walk in there and I'm like, he's got to know something's up. And we go over this hill and there's 3-4 bulls sitting there. I'm like, dang, man.
Yeah, sometimes it's you got to trust the guide, even though it doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing. If he spends enough time, he's got to know something.
Right.
Let's talk about guiding a little bit, particularly for someone who might be considering hiring a guide. Walk us through. I mean, just what are some of the pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages of hiring a guide?
Well, I would say there's more pros than cons.
I agree.
I guess the biggest con to getting a guide would be the cost.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay for that. But it's I don't know. It's kind of like when I have work to do on my car or truck, I'm capable, but I just don't have the time to do it.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't have the time to get things ordered and do all the work myself. So sometimes it's beneficial for me to just take it in somewhere, have it get done. Yeah, I had to pay a little bit of money, but it was well worth it for me to do it.
And it was done right too.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And I think that applies with a guide, like you said. You've put in the time and the effort. And when we were talking on the phone earlier, you said, either I'm going to pay the cost, me personally, of spending all that time to go down and figure out the area and the money and the travel and the time off days work or whatever for me to come down there, or you pay somebody like yourself that has that knowledge already.
Right. So let me ask you guys. I'm kind of answering a lot of questions here. So have you ever went to an area you've never been to before and hunted it or scouted it out?
Oh, absolutely. And it was just funny. Just yesterday, just went for a mountain bike ride, and there's areas that I've gone onto Google Earth, and I'm thinking, okay, this spot looks good, because I'm thinking like turkey hunting coming up, and I'm thinking this spot looks good. Oh, there's maybe some water over here, whatever. Well, I actually went up in there, and you're like, oh, well, that water's not going to work out. That whole thing's fenced off. That's not available to me. And this area over here that didn't look like it was such a steep drainage was a super steep drainage. So, oh yeah, that's absolutely. You go into an area, you think you might know something about it, and you just learn so much from actually going in there. Yeah. And it's never exactly the way you think.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and my big push to contact you is we came down as a family to do a scouting trip, and I went off some tips from some other people. You should go check this area and check this area. And I was like, okay, I put in a GPS unit, got in the side by side, and I drove all day long. I was like, oh my gosh, this area is huge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm never going to find an elk in here. And I came home and I had the realization I don't have the time or the money to do that. I need to hire a guide.
Right.
And that's how the whole ball started rolling for us and Jared particularly.
Right. I mean, you know, guides, outfitters, they have a bad rap, you know, but
Why do you think that is? That was something I was thinking about the other day. It seems like I even went to a website, and I think the title on this article was something like, "Are all guides jerks?" I mean, that was the question they had asked. I thought, well, that's interesting.
No.
So there obviously is, I guess, some notion, or people feel that way, that they just don't like guides in general. But why do you think they do get kind of a bad rap?
Well, you know, they've become successful, and I guess you look at it, anywhere somebody becomes successful, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And I guess that just comes with the territory.
Well, and I think a lot of people are opposed to the pay to play notion.
Yeah, and that could be too, but they are probably paying more
Right.
than what they are for the guide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's stories, we've all heard stories, you know, about maybe a guide trying to protect an animal and keep everyone else away. We've all probably heard these horror stories, but obviously that does not apply to all guides, obviously.
No.
So.
Right.
And I've gone with guides in the past for some mule deer hunting up by Bear Lake, and just the experience alone, where you have a better chance of being successful. Like you said, I mean, you're paying for somebody to help you be successful in a hunt. And, you know, if that's your end goal, why wouldn't you pay some money to somebody that can help you with that, is my thought.
Yeah, because I mean, it's an investment, you know. The people that call me are generally people that have really invested a lot of time and money into these tags. And so they want to be successful, whether that's just enjoying the hunt, actually seeing some animals, or taking a bull, whatever. And so they're upping that odds by getting a guide. But, you know, also a lot of these guys that call me, you know, they started putting in for these hunts when they were 40 years old. And then here they are in their 60s, and they can't do what they used to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to need some help. So that's a big reason I get calls too.
Yeah, and I think my son was an exception to the rule.
Yes, that was actually that was a lot of fun.
That little dirt bag drew out with how many points did he have on that?
I think he had 5.
5 points, and it was the multi-season limited entry elk hunt.
Yeah, there was quite a few people that were upset. They were surprised too that he had the tag, but I know I enjoyed it. I think it was fun because we were able to get out beforehand and do a lot of hiking and seeing some area, and it just made me excited to come back down and hunt with you. It was just something that was very enjoyable.
Well, how many days did you spend out there, Dave? How many days do you think you were out actually hunting with Nate? Wasn't very many.
No, it wasn't. We went down and hiked around that one day, right, Nate? Beforehand. So you can make sure that we were hikeable.
Yeah, while the bulls were in velvet.
Yeah. So we went down and hiked one day, and then for the archery season we did 3 days, right?
Yeah.
And then one day on the rifle.
And I guess my point is this: so you hunted 4 days, but Jared had 3 that I know of really good encounters, opportunities in 4 days. That's impressive.
Yeah.
You know, and
2 shots with a bow.
Yeah.
At elk. And just for unforeseen reasons. You know, he's getting excited on the first one and shot over the bull because he thought it was further away than it was. And then the second one, it was just a fluke where the arrow missed the elk. But, you know, all these encounters and stalks on bulls in that amount of time was just unreal.
And so there's a benefit to having a guide right there. I mean, that would not have happened.
Oh, no.
Unless you were with Nate.
Yeah. We would have been down there for the whole... We could have been down there for the whole hunting season, every single one, and never see a
just
bull.
looking for a wallow. Oh, that's good. How did that hunt go, Nate? Did maybe anything you want to share with that? I mean, it's a nice bull. I've seen this nice bull. Is it what is it?
6x6.
6x6, big 6x6. Dave's got it hung up in the house there.
It is. It's a great bull. I don't know. Did you ever get it scored? Was it 350? It was like 350 class, right?
Yeah, it was right around 353, I believe.
Oh, okay. 350 class. Yeah, great bull for Manti. And that was actually a lot of fun because, you know, like I said, I could hike anywhere with Jared. Like he's not a 70-year-old guy.
Yeah.
Right. The hunting's going to be a little bit different. And if you know anything about me, like I will push a hunter as much as they want to be pushed.
So the first day of the hunt, we get out on the mountain and we're hiking in, and Nate hikes faster than anybody I know. And we see this bull and he is running. Basically running across the peak, and I'm like, I don't know if I can keep up with this guy. Oh crap, Jared, you just go. Because Nate was so excited that we saw the biggest bull on the mountain is what he called it. And
yeah, it was a great bull.
And we run over there, and somebody else shot something that was way smaller in that area, but it was kind of interesting to say the least.
Yeah, that was quite the deal. I had heard later on from people that that individual had just seen a bull with velvet and wanted to shoot a velvet bull. I don't think he even knew that big bull was right there.
Not even 20 yards, 50 yards away from it.
Yeah.
Massive bull. I never got eyes on it, but based on the reaction that Nate gave, I knew it was big. Just for how fast he was like, we gotta go now.
My guide left me.
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's got to be something good, because I didn't even have time to put binos on it, and he's like, no, we're going.
Yeah,
if your guide's excited, you better get on it.
Yep.
Yeah, you spend enough time, you know which ones you want to waste your time on, the ones you don't. And the other thing too is I'm specializing on a unit that has a lot of tags too. So when the opportunity presents itself, you need to be Johnny on the spot and get it done. You know, and I think I might explain this to you too, Dave, where I've had times where there's been, 3-4 great bulls that we've had on the list to go after. And by the second morning, there's only one left.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of it. So there's a reason why sometimes I'm really wanting to move on these animals.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
do you have to, do you kind of like tailor expectations of the hunter? I mean, do you ask them up front, what size bull you're looking for? I mean, do you have those kind of discussions with the hunter typically?
Yeah, I try to get all the information I can from them, so I know what I'm in for. Whether that is an individual that isn't looking to do a lot of hiking, or if the trophy isn't so much of a concern as it is with just having a good time, being and bugling bulls, or whatever the case is. I want as much information as I can. Whether sometimes there's guys that they're dead set on using their own weapons. And I think I explained it to Dave. I do like it when hunters will use my gun, just because I know what it's capable of. I'm very familiar with it, and I know how things are going to go.
And it worked out perfect, honestly. when we used your gun.
And yeah, and I'm so glad it did too. You know, I've had guys that, and there's nothing wrong with this at all. But I've had guys that, you know, they say I'm comfortable out to 200 yards, and if it's farther, I'm not taking the shot. You know, and that's fine, and I completely respect that. But I do understand the success rate drops dramatically when that's the case, and I know that the work that you're going to put in is going to triple. And so I'm somebody who wants hunters to be successful, and I want them to get one of the better bulls. And so some of those things are really helpful. And some of the terrain that we hunt, steep, open areas. So, I mean, some of these guys, they might have 1-2 stalks in them in a day, and then that's it. And then they got to rest. You know, you do that too many times and your hunt's over before you even get a chance to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
How far was Jared's bull? It was quite the shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, 685 yards, I believe.
Yeah.
That's far.
Yeah, but for Nate's gun, honestly, it was chip shot. I mean, the way Jared explained it to me, he's like, Nate, you came back, and you could tell the story better than I can, I'm sure. But he basically said, you know, do you want to take the shot? And Jared's like, yeah, I'll take it. And you dialed your scope to however distance it was, and game over.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good conditions. Not a lot of wind.
Yep.
Great. It was great weather for shooting that shot, and he was comfortable to do it too. And he was really good, sturdy. So we took the shot. I was hesitant at first to do it, even though I know that the gun is capable, but you need to make sure that the one pulling the trigger is comfortable and able to hold for that shot.
Yeah. And I knew that, you know, just Jared and I shoot a lot. And I figured if he had a shot and he felt comfortable with it, that he doesn't have an issue with breathing or trigger creep or punch or any of that. So I was like, okay. When I heard the shot, I was like, well, we're in business. So
yeah, it had a good whop to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could hear it from where you were at. Could you?
I could hear. I heard the shot and I heard it hit the animal.
Okay, so you heard the whop too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do feel bad that you weren't standing next to him when that trigger was pulled. But you know,
it was the nature of the beast that day, though. You know, honestly.
Right. I didn't know what kind of scenarios were just going to be played out. You know, I didn't know where the bull was going to come out. We needed eyes where we could, and
we had a lot of eyes. That was the funnest part, I think, for me that day. Is, you know, we showed up. You had a couple of friends meet us at the gas station, go into the area, and we started getting on our own peak and just glassing and looking for this bull. And then as people, your friends, got off work, I'm hearing on the radio come across, I'm on such and such peak. I'm over here on this road. I'm on this road. I'm over here. And I'm like, good night. How many people do we got out here?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have a lot of people around that they're willing to help out, and you know they enjoy doing it too. So it's a lot of fun that way. But
yeah, it was pretty cool, and the excitement that everybody had to see this bull go down. I mean, everybody was just so amped, which which made it even funner, I think.
Yeah, that was a blast. I had a lot of fun with that, and and a great videoing too. You know,
yeah,
that was great. Logan was his name that actually got the kill shot on video. I had got it on video as well, but I decided to use his is so much better, where he was so close to the bull.
Well, and if it wasn't for him, you and his cow call to stop the bull,
right?
That's what Jared said he was waiting for, is just the bull to stop, because it was just moving through those trees, not fast. I mean, it was moving, but he just was waiting for it to stop. And when Logan blew his cow call, was able to get that bull to stop and look at him. That was right when Jared pulled the trigger.
Now, how far was this guy that did the cow call from the bull?
I'm guessing he was probably 300, maybe 400 yards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he had a great view of the bull, and it was straight across the drainage from where he was at. So, I mean, it worked out great.
Yeah. When you watch the video on YouTube, you hear this meow, meow, and he just stops, and I was like, holy crap. And then boom.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out great. So, and it helped a lot when you have guys that you're kind of on the same page with. You know, they're familiar with how things are ran, and you know how things are going to go. But
what do you typically offer as a guide? Like in this specific instance, I think you were pretty much just guiding Jared for like a day hunt. But do you offer? Is there like a package? Do you offer? Well, I can butcher the animal for you. I can get it. You know, the meat packaged. Or do you offer different things, or is it pretty much just the guiding of the hunt? What do you typically do, Nate?
You know, it's more just the guiding, but I can do things more than just the average take them out and go hunting. But I don't know. I'm not a big fan of getting guys put up in places and feeding them and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
I want to treat it more like, hey, you know, we're going hunting, and if you want to bring cookies to eat or a hot dog, have at it. I'm going to take this, or you know, it's up to you how you want to play it out. If you want suggestions, great. You know, let's do that. I'm not like I'm already catering to people, but I don't want to cater too much. I don't want it to not be a hunt. You know, I don't, because to be successful hunting these elk, it takes some effort, and you know, some of it is going to play on that hunter. You know, what are they willing to do? So they need to decide some stuff for themselves.
Yeah. Now, like just like quartering out the animal, do you typically do that for the hunter? Is that something they typically do themselves?
I do that. Okay. I do that. I have a lot of hunters that they enjoy it. They like to be a part of that. But that's one of those things I don't ask them to. If they don't want to get their hands dirty at all, then that's completely fine. That's something I take care of. Well, and I generally will call in someone to help out, or if I already have someone there, we just get to it.
That's what you did with Jared's too. I was blown away. I mean, we had Logan, who's a butcher, and you know, we get all of our pictures, and he's like, "Are we done?" And next thing I know, the animal is taking care of him. We're gone. I was like, "Holy crap!" That's so fast.
Yeah,
he's got it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, there was a time when, you know, everybody thought, "Oh, you gotta have horses available and everything else," but you know, now it's just debone it and just put it on your pack and go. You know, if you have the people there to do it, have it done there. When you get back to the truck, it's done. It's over.
Yeah,
that's part of the experience. I think that the scouting, the hunting, quartering out the animal and packing it out, that's all part of that experience that I think all the hunters I would think would want to be able to experience.
Yeah, I told Jared, I said, you have to pack out some of your stuff.
You got to feel that beast on your back.
Right. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but I don't use horses for a reason too, because it helps my insurance as well. Insurance isn't exactly cheap to be running an outfit.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't use horses. If I do, I hired somebody to go pack it out for me. I just give them the GPS and then they go get it, bring it out. But
that's smart.
But that's not very likely. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. So usually it's, you know, you've seen, I'll have a couple guys there.
Yep.
Quartered out, just start hiking. You know, it's always nice when you have a hunter that wants to pack out, you know, a head or something like that too, or a quarter.
I think by the time I got my pack ready, all I had was back straps. I was like, I was planning on doing some of this, but all right.
But I'm cool. I'm
Cool
good
with the back straps.
Yeah.
Now in Utah, let's see. So we should be coming up here pretty soon. Usually it's about May that credit cards start getting hit. So is that when people start to? When do they start typically reaching out to you, Nate?
It's weird. I either get them really early or real late. So I've already had, I think, let's see, 4 guys. I'm waiting to see draw results.
Really?
Yeah. So
they're reaching out to you just after they put in, before they even know they drew out.
Before they put in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they want to know they're making sure they got the right unit, and everything. So if they do draw, that everything's already good to go.
Oh, that's smart. Well, that's a good idea.
When they draw, because that's the other thing too. Where right now I don't have a lot of guys that are doing stuff with me. It's mainly me where I can do it, and I can only do so much.
Yeah.
And if I've got 2-3 hunts, I'm pretty well booked, and they would have to go with one of the other guides, and that which isn't a big deal. They know the area, they know the bulls, and they know how to hunt them. But for some hunters, they don't like the idea that, they say, I want to go with you, or I don't want to go. But
if someone's interested in hunting a particular area like your area, the Manti area, how do they typically find you?
Most of my stuff comes from referrals and YouTube.
Oh, nice.
So I have, I have an Instagram as well, and Facebook, and I've had people reach out to me from there. But I would say majority of my stuff is referrals and YouTube.
Really? That's impressive.
Yeah.
So now if somebody drew, like, do guides kind of talk and I guess share a little bit? I mean, if somebody draws out on a different unit, but they come talk to you, do you say, oh, you ought to talk to so-and-so or whatever?
Right. Yeah. And that happens as well. Yeah, for sure. I've referred a few people to other outfitters, because they had gone different units or whatever. And I've actually had people do the same for me.
Yeah. And I know personally, I would refer you to anybody I know. I mean, we had such a good experience, and just the camaraderie. I mean, I felt like one of your friends after the first day, and that's what I enjoyed about it. I felt like you were there to help us and have a good time and instruct me and teach me as much as I could in that short amount of time. And any question I was asking, you were willing to answer. Because, I'm sure there's some people that are just like, oh my gosh, enough about the questions. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why aren't we? But
your questions were sincere. There's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
So, no, I love that, man. I really enjoy that.
I think the funnest part was when we had that squirrel run across all of us, though.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
you guys laying down and one come across.
We were.
Oh yeah, that was the same day that bear was on the trail.
Yeah, when I saw that bear taking a bath in the wallow, but that squirrel was intense.
Let's hear about the squirrel. Don't leave me hanging here.
Well, we're all chilling there in the middle of the day because we were waiting for the bulls to get up out of their beds, and I look over to my left because I saw some movement, and I see this squirrel right there, not even like 5 feet, and it comes running right at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it jumps across my legs, jumps across Jared's legs, and jumps across Nate's legs, and then goes up his arm and jumps off into the woods. And we're all just like, did that just happen? It was so intense. I was just like, oh my gosh, I never had that before. And then not even half hour later is when that bear was coming down the trail right towards you guys. And I went off because I had to make a phone call, and I see the bear taking its bath, and he starts walking down the trail. So I'm running back down the trail towards you guys. yelling, "There's a bear coming!" And you guys must have seen it at the same time. And then that bear just flipped around right when he saw you guys, and he comes running back at me, and then he bombs down into the woods. But
Boxed it in.
that wasn't fun.
Yeah, that thing was close, man. That was. I thought, well, nothing's gonna top that squirrel, and then all of a sudden you come strolling down the trail with the phone video of a bear like 15 yards away taking a bath.
It was pretty intense. I'll admit. I was freaked out for a second because I didn't have a pack. Nothing. I was like, he's going to eat me.
Sounds like you had a great time. You invited me to come down. I think it was that weekend that Jared shot that bull, and I couldn't get away. And then you got one. I was like, dang it, I should have went.
Yep.
Oh, well. Sounds like a great time. Well, Nate, we've taken up a lot of your time. We really appreciate you coming onto the show and talking with us. If people want to find you, what's your Instagram tag?
It's NR Peaks.
NR Peaks. And then what about YouTube? You mentioned YouTube. How do they find you on YouTube? Same thing, NR Peaks?
Same thing on YouTube. And my website is just nrpeaks.com. So
cool. We'll make sure we put some links out there on our site and when we post this podcast for everyone.
One of the questions we always like to ask people that when they're on the podcast is, what one thing do you have to always have in your pack? It might be something different for a guide, but
besides your weapon.
Yeah.
One thing I always have in my pack, well, there's more than one thing, but one thing that comes to mind is a piece of wire.
Really? What for?
Yeah. You name it. I'd used it for a lot of different things. I've had times where I've had to use it on cameras. I've had times where I had to use it as a link for my motorcycle. It's so useful.
It's like duct tape.
Yeah. I mean, for your boots, it's become very useful.
Nice.
I guess once you start packing a little thing of wire, you don't realize how useful it is until you start packing it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I guess there's one. Yeah.
And I always know you have tuna packets in your pack too.
Oh yeah, I've always got tuna. Not everybody likes tuna, but I do.
That's the bear attractant right there, probably.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. When we were out hiking, I'm like, "Hey, do you want some of this chicken?" "Oh, I got tuna. I'm good." We're driving down in the truck going back to town. Oh, pulls out tuna.
You want some M&Ms? Tuna.
Tuna.
Banana chips? Tuna.
They packed so nicely, and it's just enough to just keep me going. I always have it.
I do have one other question I want to follow up with is, from guiding and your own experience hunting, I mean, what's kind of one thing, or if you have multiple things, but one thing that kind of like a lessons learned you would share with the listeners from your years of hunting that you might want to share with them?
Well, I guess, if you want to be successful at something, you're going to have to earn it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too often we do want to, we want the quick and easy way rather than putting the hard work in, and especially hunting. Hunting is hard work. And as you mentioned earlier, just spending the time in the field trying to learn an area. Because if you think you're going to go into an area the first time ever and just know it, it's not going to happen. You got to put the time in. And I know the area that I hunt, we've been hunting that place for 25, 30 years, and we're still discovering stuff, in new areas, new wallows or whatever else. So, okay.
Sweet, Nate. We appreciate your time and coming on here.
Thanks for the invite.
It's been fun. I know we've learned some more stuff today for sure.
Yeah, sure.
I got to put some wire in my pack.
Yeah, that was just one item, man. I always have.
You have so much stuff in your pack.
There's some things that I always have, whether it be for toothaches or whatever. Just there's certain items that's always there. But
yeah, and I think I kind of took a lesson from you in doing that. I've got like 3 or 4 different packs that I run, and when I came back, I was like, okay, I got to make every pack have the exact same stuff in it. So when I go grab it, I know that I have a small first aid kit or some snacks or, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. And some of those lightweight items, it's worth packing around all the time, blisters, whatever.
Yep.
So,
Well, cool. Thanks for your time, Nate. We will let you get back to your family.
All right.
Or doing whatever you're going to do the rest of the night.
Yeah. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. We'll see you.
Have a good one.